Now start.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Bard College Live Webcast. We're so glad that you could join us today. My name is Emma. I'll be the moderator for this morning. I'm a double major. I'm a senior between cello performance and art history.
I'm Julia. I'm also a senior, and I'm a joint major between anthropology and French studies. And then I have a concentration, which is a bit like a minor in Africana studies.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a sophomore. I'm a joint literature and human arts major.
My name is Lucas. I'm a senior and I'm a written arts major, but I concentrate in experimental humanities.
Hi, my name is Zev. I'm a first year and I'm planning on majoring in both film and psychology.
So the topic for today's webcast is student life here at Bard. Just send in your questions whenever you have one. We're more than happy to answer them. This is why we're here. But until you start sending in some questions, we'll just start talking about what it's like to be a student here and the first year experience. So Zev, you've gone through it the closest than any of us here. Do you want to start?
Sure. So basically the first thing that you experience when you're first year is language and thinking. So that's the first 3 weeks. So you get here as a first year before anyone else does, around August 10th usually. And then basically it's learning in a small setting in classroom, just like normal classes are set, but just as freshmen. And so it's a great time to really make new friends and get to know the campus before everyone else really gets there. Professors usually come in from out of the college. I had a professor who who taught at Princeton and currently teaches elsewhere. And does anyone want to speak to language and thinking? It's a really great experience.
Well, the idea is that when you first show up for language and thinking, you get this kind of tome of a binder that's filled with essentially what we like to consider a concise cross-section of the canon, from ancient texts to texts that could have been written and published even this year. So the idea with this is that we're giving you kind of like a loose idea of the trajectory of the Western imagination from the pre-Socratics up until now. And this is essentially, when Zev had mentioned this kind of unique, intimate class setting, how you're going to have maybe 15 or 16 other people in the class and a professor just facilitating the process by which you do close readings and learn, through observational analysis, learn how to analyze and synthesize information, and just do writing exercises. There's a little more leeway in them than a lot of the other ones you'll experience, because it's kind of, a way of kind of filtering you into the level of rigor that will be expected in your other classes as you move on. But there's also the social aspect too.
Exactly, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
So I'm a second semester senior, and some of the friends that I made during language and thinking my first 3 weeks at Bard are still my friends here now. It's really great. They have a bunch of different social kind of events that are planned, ways to meet people, really fun things. Also, our campus is beautiful, especially in the summer when there's space to kind of have a picnic or just hang out outside and meet people. So it's a really positive experience to get to meet all new people. You're all in the same boat. You're all coming to Bard for the first time, and you're all first years on campus together.
Now, we did get one question in, but before we answer it, this is something that I know we wanted to touch on, and Zev sort of brought it up, was this teacher-student relationship. I was wondering if we could just speak about that for a little bit, because that's really important here at Bard. I know that's one of the reasons I came here to Bard, was to work with my private cello teacher, and that's one of my favorite things about Bard, is sort of that mentor-student relationship. But could you guys speak about that a little more?
We could start with maybe advisorship.
Sure.
Yeah, Erin, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, I love my advisor, but I'm also a student who tends to seek out a lot of help in terms of either test skills or writing papers. I need help. So most professors, if not all, they have office hours that they leave open, that you can just walk in and get help with whatever you need. So I've definitely used that since my time at Bard, and that's extremely helpful.
And it's really great. You get a relationship because our classes are so small. You have a relationship with every professor that you have a class with. Every professor knows your name personally. And, as Erin was saying, you feel comfortable walking into their office hours because of the small classes. But this also helps to foster relationships outside of the classroom. For example, I have a professor who is on maternity leave, but we're trying to find a time to get together and get a cup of coffee so I can meet her new son and so we can talk about life and catch up. And the nice thing about this is not only do you have a really nice positive relationship with someone you look up to, but these are also the people writing your letters of recommendation and giving you advice for what to do for the future. And so the fact that they really know you personally and care about you makes a big difference in those steps.
Awesome. Okay, first question that we have is, I was wondering, since I heard Bard College is fairly small, do you feel like it is sort of a community?
Absolutely. Some people like to ask when we give a tour, they will say, do you feel at all isolated here in this small space that's kind of away from large city centers? And I say that, while a lot of people would think that looking in from the outside, from the inside out, it's completely the opposite. Since we can't walk out of one of the buildings and be in a bustling city right off the bat, we have to occupy ourselves and make our own fun here, which is why the community bands together and has so many events that you are going to be hard pressed to go to all the ones you want to, especially in this season when all the seniors are putting on their shows and expos for the work that they've been doing all year. But the idea is that there's never any shortage of panels, lectures, different events run by different clubs, release parties for magazines like Lux, the Literary Review, and Bard Papers. So there's always something going on that's driven by the campus and student activities office, or just by students who have gotten together, decided to do something as kind of a third-party sort of event, or definitely the clubs themselves, which drive a lot of the social scene as well. So what that means is that we are all here reading books and computing in the woods for 4 years, but it doesn't feel like there's any shortage of interest or kind of like vigor.
And we can also speak to what it's like to go to school in a rural setting versus a city setting. How do you guys think that affects us going to school, the fact that we're in the woods?
Well, what I always like to say is that we get a lot of people, we pull a lot of students from all over the United States. You have 38 states and 23 countries, I believe, if not more. And the idea is that we get a lot of people from Los Angeles and New York City. And those are both really big cities, and they're both very different cities in terms of how people get around and how people interact. And a lot of students from both those places come here and really enjoy it. And then students who also come from more rural areas as well. Really what it means is, like I said, you can tap into the vibrant social life as much as you like, but it's also, you're only as distracted as you want to be, because it's not like there's this, constant whirl of activity like in a city, but there is that if you tap into it. It's just not overwhelming.
We're kind of like the perfect distance, at least for me, from New York, whereas, art history classes always go to the city, to New York City at least once a semester to see an exhibition. You can go down for a weekend night to see a concert that you want to see or something like that. So it's accessible, but at the same time we're far enough away where it's not like the campus is emptying out over the weekend. We have our own, as Lucas was saying, we have our own vibrant social life here. So the city is accessible, but we're far enough away that we are our own kind of social entity.
And BARD also has transportation buses, which are very, very reliable, that run throughout campus and take students to the towns closest, like Red Hook or Rhinebeck. So it's very reliable and very accessible as well. So.
Great. Our next question is, how competitive is the academic environment at BARD? Now, since I'm a music student, and musicians are very competitive, I can say that really, once you get to college and here at BARD, it's really about you. I've never felt as though people are really pitted against one another. It's all about your own growth, your own relationship with your teacher, what you can do. Because once you get to the college level, you realize that pitting yourself against someone else really gets you nowhere. But especially at BARD, I feel that people are so supportive of one another and supportive of each other's endeavors that thought doesn't even come into people's minds. It's really how you can improve yourself.
Yeah, you compete with yourself and the standard that you've set for yourself. That's the only way.
Exactly. Our next question is it intimidating when you first start at BARD?
Well, I think the language and thinking program kind of helps take away some of that intimidation of first coming to college, because it is just your first years on on campus, along with your peer counselor, which is our version of the RA. So your peer counselor is an upperclassman who lives in your dorm that also will help you navigate BARD. So that takes away some of the intimidation as well. But it's just your first years on campus when you come for those 3 weeks. So it takes the intimidation away. Everyone's in the same kind of mindset as you. Still, coming here, maybe not knowing anyone. I didn't know a single person when I came here, and I found my place.
Yeah, in my first 15 minutes of being here, once my parents left, I would meet people who I thought had known each other for years, but it turns out that they had just been paired fortuitously by our residence life staff, which are very good at pairing people up together to live together. And so, you would think that when I called my best friend later that evening, he said, "Lucas, it sounds like you've been there for 2 weeks, but you've been there for like 4 hours." And that happens really easily because everyone realizes that everyone's just as vulnerable as everyone else, and since it is just the freshmen, you're not kind of running around with the anxiety of knowing where you're going, because no one knows where they're going at first, and you all help each other get to wherever that is. So.
Yeah, and it definitely has this kind of summer camp feel to it. And I'm not sure if we mentioned this, but BARD has really, really great events during language and thinking, and citizen science as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But with those events and with kind of meeting so many new people, there's really, it's just a really great experience and a really great beginning as well. So.
Next question is, what do you think is the role of international students at BARD?
I mean, international students are just students at BARD as much as anyone else is. My roommate, my first year, is an international student. We're still friends. We hang out. I'm on the tennis team here, and half of our team is international students.
Really?
A lot of it, and the other half is first-generation Americans. It's really weird the
gosh.
way that happened. Yeah, I'm like the most American on the team. So, international students are a part of the campus as much as any other student is. We're all just BARD students here.
Yeah, the nice thing is that even though we do find ourselves in this rural space, it does still act like the BARD bubble itself acts like a microcosm of the larger world, because we do pull so many students from so many different countries and from all across the United States as well. So we really have interesting cross section of the people from across the planet that are all kind of collected here, and what that means is it really enriches the cultural life of the campus and the social life. We've got groups like that do events, the ASO cultural shows, which are different, international students especially, who want to, represent the culture of their specific country will come together, and there's, big events and kind of like this exposition that goes on, and then there's food, from all over, and you get to kind of, mingle and, talk about, how your cultures differ or vary, and the multicultural life here definitely drives a lot of the different events for that reason.
And about 15% of our first-year students are international. So we're not talking about just like 5 kids here on campus. Like we're talking about there is a community, and I think this segues really well into our next question, which is, how are social groups formed at BARD? Are there a lot of cliques? Erin, why don't you answer this one first?
There aren't cliques at BARD. I mean, everyone, because of all the activities that are available, there are great opportunities for people to meet different students. Sorry, at many different moments in time. Does anyone else have?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is you're going to be doing so much at BARD. You're a student here, you have your classes, you have your major, you know people from that. You are involved in clubs, you know different people from that. You have your dorm life, you know different people from that. And so you kind of, you have all these different groups that you get to know in different settings and that you interact with in different ways, and that, everyone kind of, the nice thing about BARD is it's small enough that you have a lot of familiar faces, but large enough where you're still meeting new people. And, groups kind of form like, oh, I know Zev, have you met my friend Emma, and stuff like that. And you're constantly getting to meet new people that way. And also, it is a college where every 4 years you get a whole new class of students that you get to meet. I just met Zev this year because it's the first year.
And I just met Erin this morning. Yeah. So there you go. So I know that was one of the most refreshing things for me, especially as a musician, because I know in high school I was always pegged as sort of the music kid and like the music girl. But when I got here to Bard, that didn't matter at all. It's more about who you are rather than what you necessarily do. And I know that my core group of friends, I'm just the music kid, but I'm not the music kid, you know. You know what I mean? So besides all these wonderful people that I have here with me. How's the food? We have a question. How's the food?
Good. There's an initiative that just happened that I think is a really good way of kind of getting across what the food life of campus is, which is the Bard Farm, which is a student initiative. A bunch of students got together and realized that the college told them that if they raise $20,000 that they'll be matched at, and we can put in a farm. So a lot of our produce is locally sourced from them. It's sourced from actually a lot of different places in the area. If you go to any like nice restaurant in New York, you'll see something like Hudson Valley Produce or Hudson Valley Lamb or something like that. And all of those farms, are literally within like a throwing distance from the Bard campus. So what that means is we're getting the freshest ingredients, cage-free eggs, free-range meats. A lot of times when you go through the dining hall, you can see, this is from, whatever farm, like Rokeby Farm right down the road or something like that. And so it's really fresh, and they also change it up a lot. There's another student initiative to have these sort of pods in the dining hall where you could actually see how the food is being prepared, interact with the staff members, and also, get a lot of different, it might be Mediterranean day one day, and then Tex-Mex fusion the next day, and they like to kind of switch it up according to, different geographical locations and where the food is coming from. So there are a lot of options. And then there are also does anyone want to speak to the different actual eating options on campus in terms of manner?
Sure. So we have 3 dining halls on campus. One is Down the Road Cafe, the other one is Manor, and the other one is Klein. We have vegan, vegetarian, and gluten-free options.
And kosher and
and
halal.
kosher and halal.
And total carnivore too.
Oh, absolutely. So essentially, you're never really going to go hungry here because there are a ton of options. I don't know.
Yeah, so Klein, the main dining hall, is kind of that all-you-can-eat option when you're really hungry, and if you want a lot of variety because they make a lot of different things. Down the Road Cafe and Manor are more kind of made to order, or you can grab something out of the fridge at either of those places. So those are for maybe a smaller meal, maybe just for lunch, or if you ate your big lunch at Klein and want to eat dinner there, something like that. But Klein's kind of the main dining hall, and those 2 other ones are kind of supplemental. And Down the Road stays open really late. So I think during the week it's midnight, and on the weekends at 1 or 2. So it's nice to have that late night meal option, and that's right in the campus center.
And I like thinking of Manor as kind of it's really great for students that are in dance and theater because it's on the north side of campus, and that's where the dance and theater program is based. But it's also kind of like mom and pop cooking because they do 1 meal per mealtime, 1 vegetarian option and a non-vegetarian option. And so you can get made to order stuff, but they also have this where they just spent the time on this one thing. So it's kind of more like home cooked, while you go for Klein for like, breadth and variety, and then DTR is, a nice like quick and easy way of doing things.
And I can say, since I'm a 5th year and they established the Bard Farm in my junior year, over 20,000 pounds of organic produce is given every year to the dining halls here on campus. So that's a really, really nice addition. And we actually have another question, but the reason I bring that up is to segue into this. Our question is maybe somewhat cliche, but what separates Bard from other colleges? And I'd like us all to go around and say what we think separates Bard from other colleges. But the connection to my comment before was there's so much student initiative here on campus, and it's what you want to do here at Bard. The young man who started the Bard College Farm, he said, we're in this beautiful area, we should have a farm, and we have this wonderful land. So like Lucas said, they said, if you can raise the money, we'll do it. He raised the money, they did it, and it has become one of the best things here on campus that really serves everybody. So in my opinion, what separates Bard from other places is we're given, I know they say a lot when you go to college, expand your horizons, do what you like, blah, blah. They actually mean it here at Bard. You really can do it. If you can think it, you can do it. If you can find the resources, you can do it, and they provide that for you.
I mean, for me personally, like I've spent 4 years at Bard, so I don't really I can't speak to other schools, but what I can say about Bard that makes it stand out for me and makes me happy to be here every day is definitely my interactions with professors. The professors that I have really care about me and are really challenging me. They're not just saying, oh, good, you did a reading, you're a good student. They're saying, okay, so what do you think more about this? Why are you thinking that way? I think that's the most important thing too, is that the professors here ask you why. Why do you think that way? Why are you studying what you want to study? Why are you doing what you're doing here? Why are you approaching it that way? And so you're really challenged to critically think about everything, and it's really it's fulfilling to have that in your life, have someone asking you that and realizing that you have motivations and reasons and realizing your passions that way.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I really think that Bard is just a place to think, and that every student is very independent in the way that he or she thinks. For myself, these past 2 years that I've been here in classes, I'm challenged and motivated and inspired every day by the students around me, in addition to my professors. So it's definitely a place to learn how to think critically, abstractly, creatively, just a real place to grow.
Yeah, that's a really great way of putting it, is talking about, the individuality of every student's trajectory into whatever program is of interest to them. What I like to say is that you come here and you actually revel in the rigor as opposed to complain about it. I spent a severe amount of time with my group of friends working in any of the different libraries on campus. And when we take breaks and go get food or something, we're talking about the work that we're doing a lot of the time. You're just as likely to go to a party and hear people talking about Husserl's phenomenology as you are The Simpsons. Just an outdated reference, but it's just what came to mind. But yeah, so what I really enjoy about it is that the social and academic boundaries do kind of break down, and these sort of axis of power that's supposedly vertical in a lot of places with professors and students kind of isn't always that way. It can become horizontal, and you're engaging as two people engaged in a scholarly pursuit that really engages the mind and the imagination as well.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I came to Bard was for the small class sizes. I was in a creative writing course with 9 people, and the professor, is on a first name basis. So you really get to know everyone in the class, and you really get to know your professor. And I came for the size and the student life. I knew that if there were going to be 2,000 people at Bard, I would, get to know a lot of people really well, and I was going to be able to get involved in clubs and other student organizations and boards and committees and all that, which is really easy to get involved in as well. So.
Here we have a question that we get here a lot at admissions and on our tours. What things are important to keep in mind when applying to Bard? And what do admissions officers and teachers look for? There's really no one specific thing here. If I had to give a specific thing, our students here are all creative, they're curious, they love to learn, they show academic rigor and solid progression in high school, so pursuing sort of rigorous classes or unusual classes is always good. And for extracurricular activities, whatever you're dedicated to, you're dedicated to it. So there's no one specific thing per se. You have to do this specific thing, you have to do that specific thing. But whatever it is that you do, be dedicated to it and love it and know about it. And if you can, get out there and do some community service in conjunction with that. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that saying that the admissions office is not looking for one specific thing is very accurate because of how diverse and eclectic our students are here. If we were looking for everyone that took this class, and this class in high school, and everyone that did this kind of thing and this kind of thing, that would make a pretty boring campus if everyone was the same. So it's nice to know that our admissions office is looking for variety and looking for you to be passionate about whatever you're doing.
I think a really good way to do, obviously, as has been said, there's no silver bullet for admission to Bard, but an interesting way to look at the process is by assessing the availability of the new Bard entrance examination, which allows students to complete 4 2,500 word essays, which you pick out of 21 different ones, either in the division of language, literature, social studies, or science, math, and computing. And so you complete 4 of these, and if you get an aggregate grade of a B or higher on all of them, these are graded by BARD professors, you're automatically admitted into the college with no need for a common application.
So this is an option.
This is one of our options, and the idea is that if you are a student who shied away from standardized testing and you didn't test well or didn't really fit that well into the like Regents examinations and something like that, there are still students who didn't find that fulfilling academically when they were in high school, but still had kind of like depth of clarity and lucidity and cogency in terms of the work that they were doing, and can really know how to analyze and synthesize information across different fields, and that show that they have the really kind of like enterprising imagination. And that is something that will show be demonstrated if you decide to choose that option. But even the fact that we have that option gives you an idea of the sort of people that like coming to BARD and that BARD admissions counselors are looking for.
I'm getting word that it's a B+.
A B plus.
For the B.
A B
For
plus.
the BARD entrance exam.
So that's aggregate
So-
average among the 4.
Yep.
It's a B plus.
Yep. Are there any exams before new international students enter the school, such as writing or math? If there's some exams, what should students do to prepare for them? There are no specific exams for international students. The only
Besides this, English as a second language.
besides the English as a second language, besides the TOEFL, but something that all students have to do, because I know that this is also a prospective mathematics major, hello, something that every student has to do here at BARD, it's called the Q exam, where you go online. I remember this because I'm not a math person and I didn't want to, it was like, oh, Q exam, oh my god, but it's fine. It's not that hard. And you just have to go and show that you have basic math skills like algebra and geometry, maybe a little bit of
And
pre-calc.
this is used to place you in your math class at BARD.
It's for your benefit.
So it's not, it's not something that you have to, really slave over to prepare for. It's testing your knowledge and what classes you've taken in math.
Mm-hmm. There was a question about Greek life at BARD. I don't want to skip that one. We do not have any Greek life here at BARD. That's a pretty simple answer though, so just to get that question. Are sports a big deal at BARD? Do students rally to watch basketball games, for example?
We have a large contingent of students that are involved with sports and who enjoy going to watch the different games. We just had a lacrosse game the other day against some other college. Like that, but a lot of people came out. It was a beautiful day and came out in droves to watch us win in triple overtime. And it was one of the things I was hearing about most that day.
Wow.
And so, while we do have, people come to BARD for the life of the mind, but then from there they kind of split off in all different directions. And there are people that can enjoy going to see, watch a basketball game one night, and then they go to a lecture on the ethical implications of the drone with West Point cadets and BARD students the next night, and then are involved in a theater production the next night. And so there's no mutual exclusivity between affinity groups or realms of interest by any means.
And I'm the captain of the tennis team, so I can talk a little bit about athletics. BARD is NCAA Division III affiliated, so the student part of student athlete is stressed. You're always here for your academics first. And being an athlete here, I really like it because my friends come to my tennis matches, and I go to my friends' soccer games, and the people on the field, and you're going to support the individuals and friends that you know. Of course, you have your BARD pride, but it's nice that it's more of an individual basis. It's not like athletes are some unapproachable gods or something like that. Mm-hmm. We're all students here, and academic students first. But just to talk a bit about the athletics department, if you're interested in athletics, they're a really great department, great group of people. We have really good coaches that care about you. And I remember when I got here, my second week, I was walking through the gym and the athletic director said, "Hey Julia, how are you?" I was like, "Do you know my name?" And she learns every athlete's name within the first couple of weeks that you're here. So it's really nice to have that department that, as an athlete, cares about you and is on your side for everything.
Here we go. Oh, hello. So as a musician, Emma. Hi. Are you involved in any on-campus music activities outside of your classes, of course? Well, this is actually a very good distinction to make. I'm in the conservatory, so we have our own set of classes that we need to take. We have our own orchestra, we have our own chamber groups, but then there's also the Bard College Music Department. We have 2 departments. And actually, a lot of people ask us, can kids in the music department take classes in the conservatory? It's actually more the other way around. We take a lot of our classes in the regular music department, like our music history, our theory, our ear training. So there are definitely many, many musical groups here on campus, whether you're in the conservatory or you're not. There are probably more musical groups on campus that are not affiliated with the conservatory than are. So if you're a musician and you want to get involved on campus and you want to take lessons, you can do that for credit. And you can get involved in a multitude of musical groups here on campus. You don't have to be in the
And
conservatory.
there's a ton of bands that play on the weekends. I know Lucas, you have
Yeah.
some friends that are in
Yeah,
bands.
it's really easy just to get a group of people together and start messing around in one of the practice rooms, and all of a sudden, you're a band, and you start playing music, and they'll kind of like split up and recoalesce in a bunch of different ways. So there are different musical showcases. You know, we may do a weekend or a weekend night. There will be songs played just David Bowie covers by all the different bands on campus, which kind of range very
I'm gonna
widely.
go to that
in terms
event.
of-
Wow,
that was
that's
last year. Or all the songs from the original Tony Hawk video game soundtracks.
Are
or
you
something like
serious?
that. Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god.
So there are a lot of different events that are grouped just according to the people putting them together and what they like. So really it's kind of anything is within grasp in terms of the sort of music you're hearing or playing for that matter.
Is there any academic pretension in the classroom or between students?
I think this kind of has to do with the question that we had earlier about whether it's a competitive atmosphere. The answer to which was that we compete with the standard that we set for ourselves. I've never heard people snarkily gossiping about grades they got versus grades someone else got. I've never heard people get in serious arguments rather than debates over someone's classroom etiquette or how they operate as an intellectual. A lot of times what we have here is a good absence of pride in the classroom, and that if you're engaged in a sort of discussion and you're say my point is disproven, for example, instead of me defending it just to preserve my pride, I will gladly kind of subsume that viewpoint into the way I think and kind of try to make those things integrate and work with each other. Since we are here for the life of the mind, we're here to kind of further ourselves as much as we can, and sometimes that means you're wrong, sometimes you're right, and it's just about kind of like communal approach to the material we have, and not an every man for himself and against every other man or woman mentality.
And I kind of take that question as like, am I ready to come to Bard? I'm kind of to me fits the intimidation question, and for me, language and thinking really reaffirmed for me that I do belong in a Bard classroom and I can keep up in the classroom. And you're learning all of these texts and stuff alongside everyone else, so it's not an intimidating, pretentious, I'm just throwing this name of this philosopher out here to throw it out here. Like, if you do that, people will laugh at you.
Yeah. And also the teachers are not pretentious at all. I mean, I think Erin said before you can go up to them with anything. This is the same in the classroom. I remember I had a teacher once. I was taking a Shakespeare course, and I had spoken a lot in the beginning of the class, but as we were getting more into it, despite my love for Shakespeare and my big knowledge of it, I was getting a little intimidated by the pace of the class and things like that. And afterwards, the teacher came up to me and she said, "Emma, how come you're not speaking as much as you were at the very beginning of the semester?" And I said, "Well, I'm afraid of saying something stupid or not in line with what we're talking about." And she said, "That is one of the silliest things I've ever heard from a student in my life." She said, "Don't ever think that you're not smart enough to be in this place," and that kind of, and she said, "because you have no one to impress, least of all me." So
if you're accepted to Bard, you belong here.
So there you go. We have a pretty simple question we can answer right off the bat. What is the biggest international segment that you have? From what country? We have students from over 24 countries just in our first year class this year, in Zeb's class. And the numbers vary from year to year, and also the amount of students that come from any one specific country varies from year to year. I know that a few countries that we have a lot of relationships with, like for example China, in the conservatory we have a large Chinese contingent, a Hungarian contingent. We have a Greek community here because we have a relationship with a school in Greece. So, but there are people from all over the world here at Bard. Here's a question, a good question, and I want Zeb and Aaron to answer these first. Since the standards are so high, this must create a high pressure environment. Some students must have trouble with this. How often does this happen? And how do people deal with it when it becomes a problem? Now, I know because you two are both in the lower college, so you might remember this a little more. First coming to Bard, what's that like?
So there are 100, 200, and 300 level classes. So 100 level classes are typically introductory level classes. So like I'm in Intro to Psych, and so everyone that is in that class is learning psychology, and everyone pretty much comes into that class with the same amount of knowledge. And then there are the Learning Commons, which is also a really great resource that's used a lot by students. I'm in first year seminar, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and writing tutors come in and we meet with them, and they look at our essays and really help to work with us. And so, you know, if you're having trouble in math or writing or really anything, you know, language, you can go in and they're super, super helpful. They're, you know, a bunch of tutors that will help you and guide you in the right direction. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, with the whole availability that the professors make sure that you understand that you can come to them anytime for any sort of question, whether it's a school-related question or a personal question even. We also have counseling services, especially for students who are feeling homesick during L&T, especially, and of course throughout the entire 4 years. So yeah.
And dealing with stress, you know, we have a lot of opportunities on campus. Many weeks I partake in the Zen meditation group on campus, which meets Mondays and Thursdays. Bard, the Stevenson gym has yoga. And
Usually during
Pilates.
they do massages every week.
Yeah.
Also during finals, they usually bring in some dogs and fluffy animals that you can go and pet and cuddle.
Yeah, and even during midterms or finals, I know that Klein, our main dining facility, had karaoke night and midnight breakfast. So, you know, when everyone is, you know, studying for their midterm exams, everyone's there together singing karaoke. So it's really a good time.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
Does everyone live on campus, and how does the dormitory system work?
Well, if you were to decide to come to Bard and enroll and matriculate officially, you'd get I believe it's a link now. It was paper for me, but it's this really long list of questions about how you live. You know, when you go to sleep, on what time, or on what day, your hobbies, your academic interests. You know, it's pretty exhaustive. And the idea being that they'll match that up with someone else that kind of will seem to fit with you in residence life and put you in whatever dorm. Do one of you guys want to talk about the process of the dorm that you were in, what size it was? Because we have dorms that range from 8 students to 150 students, so there's kind of like a large gamut there.
Yeah, I started off in a smaller environment. I was in one of the toasters, which was freshman housing. And that was really great. I had a pretty clean bathroom. I shared it with our neighbors, who were 2 guys, and I had a roommate. We had a really just, small, intimate community. And this year I lived in Robbins, which is one of the biggest dorms on campus. And I also really like that. It kind of feels like a big hotel. And we also have dorm activities that feel small, yet I'm surrounded by much more people compared to last year. And what's interesting is last year I liked living close to everything because I was on the South Campus. I was next to the Campus Center in Olin, which is where all the classes are conducted, and I was next to Klein. And I really liked that I was close to everything. And this year I'm separated, but I also like that because I feel like there's a great distinction between going to school and coming back and being home. So I think, either way, wherever you are on campus, it's positive in both senses. You really just have to think about what you want in terms of that.
And yeah, and every dorm except actually one, which is upperclassmen housing, has a kitchen. So it's really easy to cook, and there's a fridge, and so you can store your stuff. And I'm currently in freshman housing. It has about 80 people, and so it's split 40 and 40. We have peer counselors, which is our version of RAs, and basically they're there to be our friends and help guide us in tough situations and talk to us and make us cookies and do all that fun stuff and just be there for us. And so I really feel like when I am done with classes and I go to my dorm, I really go home and I really hang out with my friends who at this point I feel are really like my family, and it's a really loving and nice communal environment. So.
Here's a really important question, and we can talk about sit-sci and about first-year seminar. How open is the curriculum, and what are the requirements like?
So we have these 9 distribution requirements. We are a liberal arts college. That means we have the philosophy that you'll be a well-rounded student by the time you graduate. So our 9 distribution requirements are in science with a lab, math, foreign language, literature, social studies, humanities, practicing art, which is like a painting class or a dance or theater class, analysis of art, which is like an art history or music theory class, and someone help me, I'm missing one.
Rethinking difference.
Rethinking
Which is a
difference.
class that kind of, is usually humanities class that has something to do with kind of globally shifting contexts of race, gender, sexuality, socioeconomic class. So that could be covered by a religion class sometimes, a human rights class, it kind of depends. But.
So those are the classes you have to take, and then we talked about a little bit about language and thinking. Do one of you guys want to talk about citizen science, since that happened more recently for both of you?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about citizen science. So basically, it is language and thinking with a science spin on it. So it's small class sizes. You are there for 2 or 3 weeks, and it's just the first years. You get to hang out with friends, make even more friends, be in a small classroom environment, and basically the philosophy for citizen science is, so if you plan on being an editor of a newspaper and you're going to, or a writer of a newspaper, and you're going to be writing about an epidemic or a crisis going on, you're going to have to understand that crisis, even to any extent at all. So basically, this year the theme was infectious disease. So we would have interesting class discussions. We would have laboratory sessions where we would be able to experiment with. I think this year we experimented with E. coli. Which wasn't active, so you wouldn't be able to get sick from that. It was just a laboratory sample that we used, but you would be able to test it on different things. Yeah, you'd be able to test it on different things and really learn and grow. And the professor actually who came in is a doctorate student and professor from Duke who actually studies the genome of fruit flies. So they are scientists, and they come in and learn with us, and we learn with them, and it's a really nice, cohesive environment, and it's the same environment as our seminar classes, but with a science twist. So.
And Erin, could you talk a little bit about first year seminar?
Sure. Well, it's a full year for freshmen. You can switch teachers between semesters if you want, and you have a set of required texts that range from usually philosophical texts, but also you have some poetry here and there. For instance, our class where we read like Frankenstein, which is a classic, and it's just like a standard lit class. But that also touches not on only close reading within literature, for example, but also historical and social and, just a very wide range.
Yeah, and in first year seminar, you really get to read all of those books that you haven't gotten a chance to read. You read like Rousseau and Kant and all of these great novels that really help to facilitate the discussion of the class and help you really learn with your peers. So, yeah.
Great. We had a question about diversity, and just to give you a couple of stats, if you're into that kind of stuff, our first year students this year, so Zeb's class, 48% are male, 52% are female.
And that's pretty similar to the national average in
Yep.
higher education.
From those who reported their ethnicity, because someone was asking here on the questions about diversity, 45% of our students are Caucasian or non-Hispanic. A third belong to another ethnicity, and a third did not declare. So these are all first-year statistics for this year. What are the opportunities to go off campus? Is there transportation to those places?
Yes. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So we have a shuttle service that is very reliable. It goes to Tivoli, which is the town to the north of us, makes 3 stops on campus, goes to Red Hook, which is the town to the south of us, and goes to the grocery store. So this happens every hour during the day. So there's those opportunities in Tivoli and Red Hook. There's really cute little coffee shops, places to eat, stuff like that. On the weekends, there's also shuttles to Rhinebeck, where there's great shopping and great restaurants. And there's shuttles across the river to Kingston, where there's things like, kind of more of the chain stores, Target, the mall, stuff like that.
Movie theater,
if you need to go to places like that. And then also on the weekends we have shuttles. These are all free, by the way. On the weekends we also have shuttles to the train stations. If you then want to buy a train ticket to get to New York City.
There's also the city bus that's called the Loop Bus that runs. It's like 75 cents for students if you want to go to Poughkeepsie, for instance, or anywhere in the surrounding area.
Yeah, so we also have, despite, other than going off campus, we have a ton of stuff on campus for you to do. We have the Center for Civic Engagement, and we have over 100 different clubs on campus.
Yeah, so clubs at Bard range from everything like the Bard Film Committee, the French Club, the Beekeeping Club, the Outdoors Club.
Archery Club, Beer Brewing Club,
Yeah.
Comic
Weightlifting
Club, Debate
Club.
Comedy club, improv club, locksmaking club.
I'm in Afropulse, which is an African politics and culture club. Did we name enough right here?
Are you getting the idea? We have a lot of clubs.
So if you have a weird interest, there's probably a club that exists for it, and if you have a weird interest and there's not a club, it's really easy to start a club. My friend that graduated last year started Afropulse, the club that I'm in, one of the clubs that I'm in, and so it's really easy to start a club. Your friends get really involved, and people attend other clubs' events all the time. We had a DJ night with food from Ethiopia that a local restaurant made, and some of our students helped to make, and it was well attended. So stuff like that, where our clubs are then melding into the social life outside of our little group too. It's open to the whole campus.
And what's also great is that each club has a budget that Bard offers. So usually you'll have enough money to get snacks if you want to have a big event or something even bigger than that.
And we have something that's called Budget Forum, which happens every semester, and it's where everyone gets together in the campus center in the multi-purpose room, and all the clubs get together and they sort of challenge each other for money, or they ask each other to, for funds and things like that. It can get really entertaining, but usually it's just a lot of fun, and it's great to see how many clubs come out. The whole space is packed every single time that happens. Now this is a very unusual question for us right now because the weather here is really, really wacky.
Yeah.
It's April 15th yesterday. It was snowing.
Okay, but that's not usual.
But it says, how's the weather here? I heard that it's really cold in the winter. So what do students usually do during that time? I know I read a lot of books and I practice a lot. What do you guys do?
Sledding.
Sledding.
We have great hills for sledding. It snows a lot.
Yeah, and they're really good at clearing the paths, so you'll be able to get from one end of campus to the other when there's a lot of snow. Don't worry.
Yeah, I would say definitely make sure you have some durable boots. We do live in the woods, but it's true that they do put salt on the paths.
And yeah, even though it is a New York winter, the winter break generally covers when it really is cold and when it really does snow. So for first years like me, when you get back for citizen science, even though it might be cold or it might snow a little bit, you are with your friends and you are in a community and you have a ton of things to do, and before you know it, it's spring. So
Yeah, that's the one thing about being here is that there's always something for you to be doing. You're always going to be busy doing something, and a lot of times you don't need to be outside to be doing that thing. That being said, when spring hits, it's a total renaissance of wonder, and everyone wants to be outside. And so you just do your work outside instead. So, and that's what we're on the verge of having right now. So cross your fingers for us, please.
One thing we also just want to touch on before we go, because we know we only have about 10 minutes left, is study abroad opportunities for students. That's a big part of student life here. We have one student who did do study abroad. We have one who's going to do study abroad. So first year students can begin their first year or their fall or spring semester at Bard College Berlin. Erin is going to Berlin next fall. You want to talk a little bit about that? And then Julia can speak about her time in Africa.
Sure. I'm going to go study my major, which is human rights and literature. I also applied to help to possibly get an internship there at an NGO or any other type of sponsor organization. And that program helps students find internships, so that's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so Bard has a lot of really good study abroad options. We have the Berlin campus, we have a campus in Russia and Hungary, in South Africa, where else?
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, so all different places Bard has great campuses and study abroad options. You can also study abroad through a non-Bard program. You work with the study abroad office. For example, for me, for my major, it was really important that I study abroad in French West Africa. And unfortunately, Bard doesn't have a campus anywhere in French West Africa. And so I worked with the study abroad office. I went to Senegal for a semester. It was a really great experience. I'm actually going back next month for a week for an internship that I have for an art opening. So, stuff like this where these study abroad opportunities really kind of, they become part of your bigger picture. Bard students don't kind of just study abroad for the sake of studying abroad. It has to do with your major and what you're learning. Erin was saying that she's going specifically to study her major, and that's kind of the intention of Bard students when they go abroad. It's for your great academic aspirations, wherever they may lead you in the world.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So, any other points that you guys want to make since we have just a little bit of time left? From all of your perspectives, sum up your experience at Bard. Was it all that you thought it would be? Let's start with Zev, and we'll go the other way around.
Sorry.
This time.
So,
No worries.
Yes and more. It's really, really so easy to get involved in whatever you're passionate about. I am on the Student Life Committee. I work for the Bard Prison Initiative. And so basically what the Bard Prison Initiative does is there are 6 surrounding prisons in the state of New York. And so the Bard Prison Initiative sends professors to do classes, and so eventually these students are able to get their bachelor's, and so when they get out, they are ready to do whatever they want to do in life. So there are really so many opportunities, and it's all really available here. So.
I remember talking to a lot of my friends in high school before coming to Bard, and they were telling me that I totally had my head in the clouds in regards to what a college education is like. And they said, places like that don't exist, Lucas. And I proved them wrong, and I was happy to have done so. Like Seb said, it's everything I wished for and more. The thing that has really characterized my experience here is kind of these successive moments of realizing that you can almost literally teach your brain to do gymnastics in your classes, and just being able to work through the varying levels of like theory and conceptualization around the work that I've been doing has just like catapulted me to a realm that I didn't think I would even have access to when I was in high school. But you kind of learn a lot about yourself, and that's really the thing, is that this is like it's like an academic playground for self-discovery, and I felt like Candyland when I got here, and that's why I'm going to be sad to leave. But yeah, so kind of coming into your own is something that happens while you are here, and that's the exciting portion, to realize who you are as a scholar, as a student, and as a global citizen as well.
Yeah, I mean, exactly as Lucas says, I came to Bard not knowing exactly what I wanted to study, and I knew I was interested in literature, and I like to write on the side creatively. But I really found a passion for human rights here, and that's something that I don't know if I could ever gain from another college. I've learned to think in ways I never imagined, having my mind stretched in all different directions. Yeah, it's definitely an individual growth that I've experienced here that I cherish, and that I'm excited to continue in my next 2 years.
Yeah, kind of on the same bent of not, coming in maybe with the intention to study one thing and then ending up doing something completely different. For me, I'm a big proponent for the distribution requirements. I came in knowing that I wanted to be in the Africana Studies department, but not really knowing what direction I wanted to take with it. And I became an anthropology major, and then I took an art history class as a distribution requirement, and I decided that I was really into visual culture and exploring anthropology in that way. And I think that if I had been in another school and I just declared my major coming in, I would have kind of been on a path and just finished that path. But at Bard, they really challenge you to, with these distribution requirements, to rethink the way in which you're approaching what you're learning and what you're passionate about. And so for me, Bard is not at all what I expected it to be. I completely changed my life plan, career trajectory, academic trajectory, and I really appreciate and thank Bard for that, because I don't think I would have gotten that anywhere else I would have gone. I really think that because they've challenged me with those distribution requirements, that I have really ended up finding something that I'm really, really passionate about.
And for me, yes, Bard is everything that I wanted and more, which I think is the phrase among the five of us to this question. I'm a cellist as a musician. So much of our time is spent on our own, in the practice room, finding out what's wrong with our playing and fixing it. And it's really, really easy to get caught up in that and forget that there's a world and that there are other people and that there are other things besides music. And I count myself so fortunate to have come to a place where I have the fingers to play, but I also have the mind to think about it, and that I can speak to something other than music. I have so many wonderful musical friends who go to other schools, and they know how to play their instruments wonderfully, but when you ask them about, for example, current events or other things like that, they sometimes are at either at a loss for words or they're not quite sure how to think about it. Bard has taught me how to think about it and how to think as a person, which then helps me think as a musician. So I'm so happy to have chosen to come here, which is unusual for a music student to pursue 2 degrees, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't have chosen any other way to have done an undergraduate degree than to have come to Bard. So thank you so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, please email us at admissions@bard.edu, and we'll be happy to answer it. If you have any specific questions, feel free to send those in too. We have many students besides the 5 of us who work here at admissions that we will be happy to direct your question to. And have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye.